Hey, this is Troy from Planet 76. We've got some really good Sixers-focused content coming your way today. Make sure you subscribe to the pod so you can be in the know when we release new content. Enjoy the show. What is going on, Planet 76? Troy here. I got Michael here with me as always. Episode 61. 61, hard to believe, of the podcast.
61.
And some good Sixers-focused content today. Michael's got a new setup, got a new microphone we're trying out, and so that's right.
But we'll get there.
That's right. So, like we've said over the last couple episodes, we are in the dog days of the off season. Certainly not too much happening. Tobias Harris, shout out to him, got married yesterday.
That's lit.
Yeah, so we're recording Sunday, August 7th. Tobias Harris tied the knot yesterday, so shout out to him. And just some other, a few other things, of course, going on around the league, but such as James Harden partying with Travis Scott and Kevin Durant in London. Is that right? I think London.
I think so,
yeah. But anyway, so that's kind of the highs of the Sixers news lately. But again, that's where we're at. So we've of course, every episode we got to figure out what to talk about, and so Michael, had some thoughts as to where we could run potentially with the next few episodes, and just kind of get deeper into some of the players on the Sixers roster. So I'm going to let him kind of explain that, and just where we're going to go for this episode 61. So, Michael, what's on the agenda?
So we got something. We're trying out something new. We've never really done something like this before on the podcast. We've obviously talked about certain players at an individual level, but at least for this week, we're going to see how it goes. We're just going to kind of do some breakdown on the Sixers players. We're going to start with a little breakdown. We're going to talk about their history in the league. And as of right now, this is going to be just for guys that the Sixers have recently acquired. So, for example, tonight we're going to start with Anthony Melton and Danuel House. We're going to go into their play style a little bit. We're going to go into their potential impact on the Sixers, with the Sixers. And then we're going to get into our overall thoughts on them as players. Just generally how we're feeling about them. Generally what we think they can bring. So we're just going to run with that. And like I said, we're going to see how it goes. We've never really done something like this before. But we're going to start with some of the new guys.
Yeah.
And, we're going to start with Anthony Melton. So, Troy.
Sure. Yeah, so sounds good to me. I like the plan, as we can dig a little deeper while there's not too much going on. Just talking about some players. So Anthony Melton first. The dude is just 24 years old. That's what sticks out to me as I'm looking at Basketball Reference right now. Just turned 24. Went to USC, of course, and so he's entering into his 5th year in the NBA. And what I like about the signing, or what I know about Anthony Melton, is I know he is a very good offensive player and a very good defensive player, off the bench. And so I think he just adds a lot. There's a lot of ways you can go with this, such as, let's see, what he shot last year from 3, 37%. The year before, in just 52 games, he shot over 40% from 3. With the Memphis Grizzlies, around 20 to 22 minutes a game, around 9-10 points a game. And so, I do know, even fresh off the signing, one thing that stuck out to me was, fresh off the trade, rather, was that, someone said that he was very, very close, either last year or the year before, to making an all-NBA defensive team. Very close, received significant amount of votes. And so that is something I didn't know, until he became a Sixer. But that stuck out to me right away. How about you?
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
I forget where I saw that, but yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. It wouldn't shock me. There's been a lot of guys the past few seasons that have been so good defensively, but because of the defensive talent in the NBA, they just haven't made an all-defensive team. And I think D'Anthony Melton is a guy that, even though he's not making all defensive teams, he's still one of those great defenders, especially at the guard position. Because, like I said, You don't necessarily have to make an all-defensive
Right.
team to be considered a great defender. For example, this year Joel Embiid didn't make one, even though he's a fantastic defender. He's one of the best in the league in my opinion. So you don't have to necessarily make that all-defensive team to still be considered a good but even great defender overall. So I think it's a great notion for the Sixers. I think he's going to help them out a lot. The Sixers guards, aside from Thibault, if you count him as a guard, not too great defensively. Right. So I think that's going to help out a lot.
Yeah, and the other thing that when I hear the name DeAnthony Melton, he's a combo guard. I mean, he's not too different, I don't think. I mean, there's certainly differences and similarities to Shake Milton as well on the offensive end. But just the way that he can kind of plug and play, whatever position you might need him to, point guard, shooting guard. And then, again, he gets it done on the defensive end. He was a second-round pick back in 2018. Again, 3 years with Memphis, 1 with Phoenix, where he started 31 games. Started 15 games for the Grizzlies last year out of 73 total that he played. So, yeah, I mean, I like it. Why don't we talk a little bit more about that, his play style, going back to this thought on Shake Milton and, similarities and differences or whatever. But we know DeAnthony Melton, we know a fact, he's coming off the bench. We know a second fact that he is going to be one of those pieces off the bench. I don't think he's necessarily fighting for a role on this team. I don't know if you agree with that, but I think he's a piece to me that's going to contribute.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to have to really... He's going to be one of the few guys off the bench for the Sixers that I don't think is going to have to fight for a role for minutes. He has a role here despite being one of the newer guys on this roster. The Sixers and Daryl Morey traded for him because I'm assuming they also believe that. They flipped Danny Green for him. They want a guy who's going to contribute now because the Sixers are, if you didn't know already, in win-now mode. They need guys who can contribute. And DeAnthony Melton is the perfect guy for that role. He fits that mold very well. And he's going to be one of the few guys off the bench that don't have to compete for minutes for a role. The next guy we're going to be talking about, Danuel House. I'm not sure if I can say the same for him, but for DeAnthony Melton at least, I can say that with
And
confidence.
so how do you think he fits? So we kind of know how he plays just from, hearing about him since he's been acquired by the Sixers or even watching some games when he was with Memphis and just knowing the player that he is and knowing that he's going to come off the bench. So how does his style of play fit with the Sixers? One thing I'll say is that I think it's significant that he can play either guard position because you got, James Harden and Tyrese Maxey. One of them comes out, you sub in DeAnthony Melton, you just keep on going, So I think that's huge. That's the biggest thing for me. What about you?
I think him being able to play off the ball is going to be big for the Sixers because you have guys like Maxey, Harden, and Embiid who, Embiid a little more less than those guys, need the ball in their hands to be productive. Harden needs the ball. He needs the ball in his hands. He's the offensive generator. He needs the ball. Maxey can play off the ball, but as a scorer, which is for the most part what he is now, he needs the ball to do that. With DeAnthony Melton, he can play off the ball. He's great as a catch-and-shoot player. He's great as a cutter. He can move off the ball very well, come off screens and hit threes, which is exactly what the Sixers need. Every team needs that. So if every team needs that, why wouldn't the Sixers, So the Sixers need that, and I don't think you can have too much of that. I don't think any team in the league has too much of that. I don't think any team in the league ever will have too much of that. It's great that he can play off the ball, and like you said, it's great that he can play both guard slots because he can handle the ball. He can handle the ball and he can score. So that's, again, that combo. You need that from your guard.
Yeah. Especially
your guard who might be getting 6-man minutes off the bench. Who knows? We don't know yet, but you need that regardless.
Yeah, I'm excited about DeAnthony Melton. I think that's like one of the underrated moves around the NBA. Hopefully, it'll turn into such, because
Yeah.
to do what we did, and we've said it before, to swap up or to get rid of a pick at 23 or whatever we were, and Danny Green, and get a guy who's going to contribute right now, is a win. It's just a win.
Massive
And
win.
he's 20. He
Massive
just turned
win.
24, and that's the other thing that I'll say. So,
Massive dub.
and I'll get on a little bit of a rant here, but that's okay. The other thing I'll say is that, for what will I say? What will I say? In the NBA, you have a lot of contending teams, quote unquote. So Sixers are a quote unquote contender in the East because their hope is to be a top 4 seed when in the Eastern Conference and to fight to get to the finals. That's the goal that this team has, and they're all very upfront about that. But oftentimes, when contending teams are looking to add pieces in the offseason, who do you go and get? You go and get a veteran, you like a old veteran, like a PJ Tucker, like Danny Green, like JJ Redick, like who, like Carmelo Anthony, which was a joke for the Lakers. But you go and get some guys that are old, and my point is that you get guys who are past their prime, who just want to go and win a title somewhere. This piece in DeAnthony Melton is the opposite of that. He's 24. He might not even be at his prime yet. And that's exciting to go and get someone and get rid of a late first-round pick for a guy who has shown he can play in this league, and he is 24. He's probably and hopefully not at his prime yet. Like, he hasn't peaked. It's just exciting because I think you can unlock even more of him and show even more value. And, again, hopefully, that a long time down the road, he's going to be remembered as a Sixer because of the impact he's had on his team off the bench. I just think that that's huge because you go and get guys that are going to average 3, 4, 5 points off the bench who are just, old veterans, but this isn't the case. And that's why I think I'm so excited about DeAnthony Melton because it's different.
Yeah, it's very different. It's one of those things where I think you can almost 100% guarantee that these guys are going to be productive off the bench. And, I think we can back that up. Career high for Melton last year in points, 10.8 per game. Career high in field goal attempts, which is a great sign. You want this guy to be shooting the ball as much as he can. He's a career 36% three-point shooter, which is fantastic. In Memphis, he's a 37% career three-point shooter. Well, with Memphis, I should say, because he was there 3 seasons, and he was with the Suns for 1 season. 36% for his career from 3 on almost 4 attempts, which is great. I think that'll increase. He's going to get more opportunity than he did in Memphis here. He was playing behind John Morant. He was playing behind Desmond Bane. He was playing behind Dylan Brooks. He's going to have a lot more opportunities here. Obviously, he's playing against better players with Tyrese Maxey and James Harden, but the Sixers need a backup guard. And while I think Shea can be that guy as well, like we're talking about, Melton is going to be a contributor too.
Yep. Yeah, you like that. Even just as you mentioned, he was up to 9.5 field goal attempts a game this past season. That is great. And it's. I just think it's going to be big. I like this that. To back up Tyrese Maxey and James Harden, there's not a massive fallout, behind them. And I think Daryl and I think we have confidence in a guy like DeAnthony Melton who you can plug and play into situations, and he's going to get the job done. And so even when those guys miss several games, you insert this guy into the starting lineup and, at either guard position, and I just think it's going to be good. So this is a lot of high talk on DeAnthony Melton, but I am all aboard for that. I like it.
I'm all for that.
Anything else on him?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I just am excited to see what he's going to bring. Obviously, Troy and I talk about what we think he's going to bring, and I would like to think that
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I would love to think that because it means a lot for the success of the Sixers, again, because they traded for this guy who, again, they're assuming that he's going to be a major
Right.
contributor. So it's going to be big, assuming things play out as we expect. It's going to be really solid for them to have.
Yep. All right, moving on. Danuel House. So, few fast facts about him, and then I'll toss it your way. Small forward, 6'6". Entering his what? Entering into his, I don't even know what season. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 7th season.
No, ninth. What am I
So
saying?
he played
What
on
am I
3
saying?
teams in
Yeah.
2021. Kind of. It says the New York Knicks played 1 game, attempted 1 field goal, and just dipped after 3 minutes. That's what this says. I don't recall that. Anyway, spent some time in Houston and spent some time in Utah this past year. Most of you know him from his Houston days. Spent a little time in Phoenix before that. So, yeah, a guy who's been around the league for a little while now. He is 28 years old. And, yeah, so he spent the majority of his days in Houston. 154 games in Houston. Utah this past year, just 25. So, he is a familiar face if you've been following James Harden or Danuel House and what's his face, Daryl Morey, in Houston. So,
Yes.
what else do you see here?
Well, I think for one thing, him having played the most games with Utah, I think that's probably the most accurate sample we have, and from that we can see he shot 42% from 3, albeit on only 3 attempts. You would like to see a little more there, but that's fine. And in Houston with Harden, in 2019-2020,
Right.
he shot 36% on almost 6 attempts.
An average 10 and a half
Also solid. 10
points.
and a half. What? Oh, points. Oh, yes.
Wow.
I didn't even see that. Yes. Yeah, that's great. That was his highest career points by far. And I'm not really expecting him to be like a super scoring guy, but he's definitely going to give you a boost from beyond the 3-point line. He's definitely going to give you a boost defensively. I think he's a pretty solid defender. He's 6'6", so he can probably play the guard slot if he needs. Probably slide down to the 3, and I wouldn't go much further past that. I'm not that confident in his defense, although I think he's a good guard defender for the most part, good on the perimeter as well. I'm just looking for a solid, I'm looking for him to replicate what he did in Utah this season. Just give me 7 points per game on good defense. Give me a steal or 2 here and there, and just knock down 3-pointers. Just you're playing with Harden again. He's gonna find you. Just get to your spots. He'll find you and make some open threes. That's all I'm really asking from this guy. And again, like we talked about a few episodes ago, it might come down to House not getting minutes.
Right.
However, the Sixers did pay him 2 years, $8 million. So with that in mind, you would probably expect him to play him because unless someone comes out of nowhere, the guy that you're paying $8 million to for 2 years is probably going to get minutes. Probably.
Right.
Usually that's what happens. Again, we are assuming because we don't actually know, but since we're assuming, that's the conclusion that we come to is that you would think he's going to get minutes. So that's what I'm looking for from him this season. I'm not gonna. He doesn't need to be like I said, a supercharged guy off the bench like we're expecting from Melton. I'm just expecting some solid defense and just make your open threes is really it.
Right. Yeah, so the thing that jumps off the page to me and for everyone else, you know what I mean? It's the days he spent in Houston and the fact that he's teaming up with James Harden again and just looking at some of these numbers and how, during, pretty much just 3 seasons, 3.5 maybe, in Houston, some of these numbers, man, like I don't think I knew this. Again, 10.5 a game, on over 30 minutes per game and 52 starts in 2019-20. Like, that's
Those are the small ball
right.
days too with Russ and James
Yep.
Harden. He was playing a
So
lot
that's
of
significant.
minutes.
I mean, that's huge. And
Yeah.
not only was he playing, but he was playing well. And shooting the ball well. And, even as you mentioned this past season, in 25 games in Utah, he shot over 41%. And, of course, again, in the Houston days, just like anybody else who has Houston on their timeline in the NBA, they shoot more threes there. And so his three attempts per game were higher in Houston. Curious to see how it just translates again, because he's not in Houston, but I mean, we're basically the old Rockets, so the Philadelphia Rockets.
Philadelphia Rockets, Houston 76ers.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm not as excited about him as I am DeAnthony Melton, and part of that, to your point, is just we don't know how often he's going to play, how many minutes he's going to get when he does, and all that fun stuff. But I don't mind it. Again, and another reason I don't mind it is because he's 28 years old. 2 years. It's not like we're signing a bunch of 40-year-olds. We only got PJ Tucker, and PJ Tucker's a different breed. I don't mind that one because speaking of like primes and stuff, like when you're 37 or whatever he is, it's like easy to say you're past your prime. But like PJ Tucker, I don't think he's really had a prime. He's kind of just
guys like that don't have primes. They just obviously they have their better years, but there's a difference between a guy who's really at his peak versus a guy like PJ Tucker who's he's been this kind of player his whole career. He's obviously better than he was before, but it's not really a massive improvement as you would see from someone like Joel Embiid, who just takes massive leaps in scoring output every year.
Right, yeah. PJ Tucker, man, he's like a 6, 7, 8 point guy and a 6, 7, 8 rebound guy a game, and that's just who he's been for his entire career. So that one, again, it's not like we're signing a 37-year-old DeAnthony Melton who hasn't averaged 10 points in 10 years. You know what I mean? We get a young guy in him and in Danuel House. So a little more on House. Like, what do you... again, a lot of this is we're just making predictions, but what do you envision for him, and how much of it's going to be beneficial to him that he played with James Harden? Obviously, I'm sure James was involved. Maybe we'll find out more when the tampering comes down, but I'm sure James was involved in getting him here, kind of. And so, what's your thought on that connection, and just how maybe that'll make it easier for him to adjust, or what?
That's a good point that you just brought up. I think it's a lot easier for guys to adjust to new environments when they're playing with familiar faces. I think, and again, I'm kind of just echoing you here as well, but it wouldn't shock me if a big reason why Tucker chose Philadelphia over Miami was because of James Harden. He had the opportunity to play with his old teammate, a guy who, I mean, he had the best years of his career with. So if you're PJ Tucker, you're thinking, yeah, you know what? Let me go try and win. Let me go try and play with my former teammate. I had he was a great teammate. He made my life easier. Why not try that again? So why wouldn't Danuel House think the exact same thing?
Right.
I think and House too. Like we just talked about it. Best year of his career with Harden in Houston, and I don't think that's a coincidence. It's easy to come to that conclusion. It definitely wasn't a coincidence because of how James Harden is and how he was with Houston. So, again, I could imagine that House sees Harden. Hey, man, you know what? The Sixers looking good. I enjoyed playing with you in Houston. Let's run it back. Literally, let's run it back.
Yeah. Well said. I like it. Now, again, we like a lot of stuff on paper here in regard to the Sixers, but...
A lot different than what it is.
What's that?
Not different than what it is when the season starts. So,
but we'll see. So, how do you think he fits in with this entire? again, we're talking about it's going to be maybe a fight for minutes for him and some of the other forwards. So, I mean, if you're Glenn Rivers, what are you doing? Now, again, all of these guys are going to play at some point, but how do you make the decision between him and Niang and Matisse and PJ Tucker? Well, PJ Tucker's going to start, but some of those guys, like, how do you do it?
It's not. I don't think it's going to be too difficult. It's not going to be easy, but it's not going to be too difficult. The one thing that I think really is key in this is that the Sixers, again, like I mentioned earlier, the Sixers signed House to 2 years, $8 million. So if you're giving a guy that money, the assumption is that he's going to play significant minutes. You don't offer that guy that money and then not give him playing time. Obviously within reason, because the Sixers re-signed Furkan last year to 3 years, $50 million, and he didn't really play this year. Again, within reason. But with a guy like House, I think it's different. I think you have a much larger sample size with House because he's played longer, so you can really gauge what you're getting with House. So I would like to think he plays. I really would. I would like to think he plays significant minutes, whether it's at the backup 3, maybe it's some 4 possibly. Again, like I said earlier, I'm not really sure if I'd stretch him down to the 4 like that. He probably has played some 4 in Houston. Actually, I don't think he did. No, he didn't. But, well, maybe he did. And it didn't just show up just because of whatever reason. But I would like to think he gets some minutes at the 2 or 3. Because he has played the 2, he has played the 3. And, yeah, I just... My conclusion is they offered him that money. I would hope and think that he gets minutes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, but minutes always find a way to work themselves out for these bench guys.
That's true.
And again, it's a good problem to have. We've addressed this before, that this bench is bolstered to a point where you're having to have this conversation, saying, okay, who's going to start, who's going to get the most minutes and that kind of thing. But again, things happen in the NBA. It's a long season, injuries and just other things go on, and so each of these guys got to be ready. And so Danuel House will definitely get an opportunity. We know that, and if he does well with that opportunity, I'm sure his minutes will only grow from that. So yeah, we're on board with Danuel House. It'll be refreshing to see someone in a Sixers uniform that is wearing the number 25 shoot the ball a little bit.
Well.
Just to shoot the ball. It'd be nice to see someone shoot the ball wearing that jersey number.
That's fair.
Yeah, so had to throw that in there. Yeah. So I saw something on just Basketball Reference that we're both looking at. I saw like a quote like today from Tyrese Maxey about he or not a quote. Someone interviewed him, I guess, and asked about the additional bench pieces, and he said, he thinks that it's going to help them become a legitimate title contender. Again, that's what the Sixers are about, and time will certainly tell if that's the truth. We like to hope that he's right. We like to hope that these guys are good and they're going to mesh well together. But I mean, is this the deepest bench we've had? Well,
Ever?
yeah, in the Joel Embiid era.
Well, in the Joel Embiid era, 1,000,000% yes. I would even venture outward and say maybe ever.
Yeah.
I'm not really too keen with the 60s, 70s, and 80s Sixers, but I would like to think that this is the deepest bench they've had. I know. I think. Did Bobby Jones come off the bench with the Sixers? I have no idea. I don't even know why. I don't know, but I'd like to at least think this is the deepest bench they've had, especially when you consider the dimensions that these guys bring and their abilities, how they translate to the Sixers specifically.
Yeah, I think that now. I mean, it might just be because we're talking about Danuel House, or it might be because I really feel this way. So I love our guards off the bench. I just do. I'm just a fan of them personally.
There's no reason not to be.
Yeah,
really.
and then you kind of know what you're gonna get with George Niang. We've seen him for a year in a Sixers uniform, and especially regular season, we enjoyed that. The center position with Paul Reed. Hopefully that's going to be a good thing. Charles Bassey and those guys, and then to me, you got Furkan, you got Isaiah Joe. You kind of know what you're getting there, depending on minute situation, of course. But to me, what can really make this bench be the bench that you're talking about and being, the best ever for the Sixers, it might be Danuel House. Because we don't know exactly, are we going to get a Houston Danuel House where when he's in, he's shooting and he's shooting really well? Because that's going to make a difference. And we know he's, capable on the defensive end. I don't have film in front of me or haven't watched much Danuel House film, but I would bet most people trust him on the defensive end over George Niang, right?
Yeah, I definitely do.
Okay. I'm just making sure because I really, I was assuming that I thought that, but I wasn't positive.
No, that's a good assumption.
But anyway, I just think he's an important piece if we're going to be a really, really good bench, and this unit's going to take us to that next level. He could be an X factor in that for the sole fact that we don't know exactly what we're going to get as far as his production, as far as his minutes, as far as how often he's going to shoot the ball. We don't know exactly because his numbers have even when we look at it, have changed over the years, especially in the last couple since his Houston time, and especially since James Harden hasn't been there. So. That's my thought. I think he's an important factor into how good this bench can be. So, all right. Anything else?
I don't think so. I think I pretty much. I think we did a solid job of really.
Yeah, that was fun.
Of really giving some honest breakdown of these guys because I know, and like you mentioned earlier with D'Anthony Melton, I knew about him, but before he came to the Sixers, I definitely don't know as much as I do now.
Right.
So,
yeah, and so hopefully, if you're listening and you didn't know much about these two guys, hopefully if you learned something through episode 61 of Planet 76 and we were able to fill you in a little bit, look for more of these coming your way as we inch slowly but surely closer to the season.
Slowly but surely.
So more Sixers content. Some, other than this, even some more stuff up our sleeve coming in the future. So be on the lookout for that. If you haven't already, subscribe, hit that like button, give us a follow, whatever platform you are on. And thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we will see you next time on Planet 76. Peace. Are you on Instagram? Why don't you go give us a follow at Planet 76 Podcast so you can be in the know when we drop new episodes. Thanks for listening to this one, and we'll see you next time.